Welcome to the Saturday edition of Anglican Unscripted. This is episode 152, and I'm here with our guest, Alan Haley. I'm Kevin Carlson.
And I'm Alan Haley, and today is January 17th, 2015.
Many of you have just clicked on a headline that says, U.S. Supreme Court overturns same-sex marriage. And it's called a teaser headline because people go, whoa, wow, what's this? I need to learn about that. Well, I'm here with a distinguished lawyer, Alan Haley, who's argued a case before the Supreme Court, and I myself am Kevin Carlson of no distinction whatsoever. And I thought I would use this opportunity to talk about an announcement that came yesterday with the Supreme Court has decided to take up same-sex marriage. There has finally been what we call the climactic. Somebody has opposed an appeals process where others have not opposed it, which is where the U.S. Supreme Court finally steps in and says, okay, stop fighting. We'll make the final determination here. I guess we have to go all the way back to DOMA and talk about what happened there as to why we don't have law for this already.
Okay. Yeah, just go back to DOMA. Defense of Marriage Act was a statute passed by Congress in response to the first decisions that allowed gay marriages in various states, and it gave states permission not to recognize those marriages in their own borders, among other things. And the Supreme Court struck down a portion of the DOMA just a few years ago in Windsor, United States v. Windsor, involving a question of estate taxes for a same-sex couple. And in that case, it was a 5-4 decision, typical of the Supreme Court on these matters, written by Justice Kennedy, who was the swing vote so often. And Justice Kennedy, in this case, went out of his way to lambaste DOMA for having been enacted out of animus toward gay people. And that was such a strong sentiment, and he didn't shy from it in his opinion, even though not all the other justices agreed with him, that it was picked up by the circuit courts all across the country, and they began striking down same-sex marriage bans on the grounds that they are essentially anti-gay laws.
Well, let's let people know what DOMA said. DOMA said that marriage is defined between a man and a woman.
Man and a woman.
It was passed by the Congress and the Senate in 1993 and signed by Bill Clinton into law.
Correct.
Now, this has been overturned by the U.S. Supreme Court.
Well, not all of it, but the part that, I'm sorry, the federal government part of it, with regard to the IRS, it said that the federal government cannot limit marriage to just a man and a woman because that's unequal treatment to gay people. And it didn't say anything about the recognition of marriages in other states, but that's the question now that's going to be decided by this new Supreme Court case. What happened, of course, is, as I said, over the decisions that came out that followed Justice Kennedy and struck down a lot of these gay marriage bans on the grounds that they're anti-gay law, discriminatory, the courts kept, every federal court to address that after Windsor found that the laws were unconstitutional in violation of the 14th Amendment's right to equal protection. And the Sixth Circuit in Kentucky, Michigan, Ohio, and one other state, Illinois, I guess. Michigan, Ohio, Tennessee, and Kentucky. Yeah. The Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals, for the first time, ruled that the bans in those states were legal, and that the question should not be resolved in the courts, but by the legislatures. It should be left to the legislatures. A sound and healthy view that the court should have been following ever since Roe v. Wade, but of course we know that's not been the story.
Well,
what happens too often is people who can't get these things through the legislature go to the courts.
Well, now let's introduce this principle that's in our Constitution called states' rights. The states have the right to some degree of self-determination.
Right.
And that's written into the Constitution. It's been agreed to by the U.S. Supreme Court on many occasions.
It's enshrined in the 10th Amendment. The powers not granted expressly to the government are reserved to the states or to the people.
So we have a possibility, I see, of three separate outcomes that could come from the U.S. Supreme Court finally saying we're going to decide. They could decide first each state has its own ability to determine whether or not there will be same-sex marriage. Two, they could say that the Constitution does not define same-sex marriage. Three, they could say the Constitution does define same-sex marriage. And is there another possible outcome I'm missing?
Well, the two questions they're going to have addressed in this argument, they set a special argument for this coming April, a longer argument than usual, and an hour and a half is going to be devoted to the question of whether same-sex marriage bans violate the 14th Amendment. And in that question are those questions that you posed, namely, what is the definition of marriage, and can it be limited to a man and a woman without violating the rights of same-sex couples? And then the second question they're going to address is that one I adverted to earlier, the question of whether the states that don't recognize same-sex marriages must recognize them if they were performed validly in another state under the full faith and credit clause. So that's really the second part of DOMA, which they haven't declared unconstitutional yet, but that's going to be addressed in this argument. So we are going to get a double whammy, and as I say, if the stays 5-4 the way it did in Windsor, then you will have both questions answered. Yes, the 14th Amendment does ban all kinds of laws that try to restrict marriage to just between a man and a woman. And yes, the states are bound to recognize same-sex marriage because they can't forbid it. So it's if that is the outcome, I look for a rather strong conservative backlash going into the 2016 elections, but who knows what is going to carry the day on that. The Democrats, of course, will go forward with their candidate, and this issue, actually, if the Supreme Court gives them the full win that it looks like it will happen, then the Democrats could come behind their candidate, rally behind the candidate on this particular issue, where it might split the Republican Party, because there's a substantial wing, a sizable wing of the Republicans that, of course, have no problems with gay marriage and want to get the issue behind them. And it's the conservative wing that is going to have real problems with this. And I don't see that happening in the Democrat Party.
You bring up something really interesting, and that's the change of the nation on this ideal of same-sex relationships or gay marriage, as we'll call it. 10 years ago, barely 40% of the people in this nation supported it. And now we're up to 56, 57% of people support gay marriage. Ironically, only 42% of people support gay sex. Whatever. You just that Gallup. Why do you have to ask both questions? But so we have arrived to the point now where the country itself supports it. And Alan and I are not here to bring you good news that the U.S. Supreme Court is going to overturn this. We're both of the opinion that if you're an evangelical Christian, you're not going to be happy with the outcome.
Yeah, and unfortunately, as I say, the roots to this go way further back. We've lost our ability to, the old Aristotelian principles of logic of what are the innate characteristics of a thing that define it and make its purpose. And marriage used to be seen in Aristotelian sense. You could say, like an apple. An apple has an essence to it in an Aristotelian sense that defines its purpose. It's juicy, it's fruity, it's good food. And you wouldn't use it for example, washing your windshields or anything like that. But once you throw out the essence of something, and the essence of marriage being the ability of a man and a woman to create a family and raise them up and give them to the next generation, that is lost in all this, because it becomes just the same as using an apple to wash a windshield. You can use a marriage to use any two people can bring up children. and it maybe not do the job very well, but you can do it, and so why keep people from doing it?
Yeah.
And that's, as I say, we've lost that sense of what was an essence of something, and now it's kind of relativism everywhere. Everywhere you look, there's no one opinion that stands out or that can be said to be more correct than any other. And in that, of course, the great sufferer is religion, because religion is the one point of view, the one story that insists that it is superior to all other views, that you have to follow this for your own salvation. And the more people reject these other essences of civilization and what has brought them to this point, the more helpless they're going to be in terms of coping with religion and religious issues. And we see the signs of this conflict every day, everywhere, where people are going after religious people just for their beliefs on the grounds that these are bigoted beliefs and not defensible rationally. Well, it's the problems, the shoe's entirely on the other side. We have departed so far from Aristotelian principles of logic that we used to. Our founding fathers were steeped in, and our country, for the first 100 years or so, was trained in the schools. We've thrown all that education out in the schools, and now we're raising a generation of I call them philosophical ignoramuses. And I don't know what is going to come from that, but
a little double Latin term there.
Right.
Well,
it's not good.
I wonder if we can't, look back and blame no-fault divorce and other things that have occurred throughout our society in the last 36 years.
No-fault divorce, I'd like to point out, is that's where the state got hold of marriage. Mm-hmm. Up until then, the church got to define when you were married and when you were divorced or anything like that by turning it to the states and letting them come in and set asunder that which no man should set asunder because God joined them. The church surrendered all authority to the state over marriage, and it's been downhill ever since.
It has. Well, I'm sorry we couldn't bring you good news on this Saturday, but you're going to have to watch what happens in June. It's going to be an interesting decision, obviously, because of Kennedy and his past decisions. And people wanted this decided once and for all. Well, it's going to happen.
Right. For better, for worse.
For better, for worse. Thank you for your time. I understand you're taking a little time off.
Oh, we're looking forward to next week in Charleston at Mere Anglicanism. Yes,
it's a fun conference. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
Many of you clicked on a link that said Supreme Court to overturn same-sex marriage. And would these people please stop texting me? Hold on, let me turn off my texter. Okay, Michaela. That text stuff is coming up on my computer. I know, take me out of the group text. Just text Mom and Victoria separately, please. Thank you. Well, at least we have our blooper for the day. It's
the joys of being back at home.
Yeah, I know.